Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. I've taken the last week off here. I'm doing a little construction on the cabin in the house here. Not me personally. Got lots of help from some really great crew in the area. I wish I could say I was building this by myself, but to get it as far along as it is now, it would have taken me roughly 17 years. One of the things I wanted to talk about is maybe a little life lesson or my thoughts on the benefits and what I've learned on spending, I'd say, anywhere between 1.5 and 5 years completely on my own, depending on how you want to gauge being quote unquote alone. And maybe it will give you some hope and or maybe it'll give you something to actually accomplish in your life that might help you out if you find that you're struggling. When I got out of my last really bad relationship that had lasted about a year and a half, something like that, I decided, this ended so poorly. Let me adjust my seat here a little bit. This ended so poorly that I never want this to happen again to me. But it kept happening to me. I went through 2 divorces. I went through multiple relationships that didn't work out. Either I got cheated on, or they lied to me, or they broke it off with me, or something else happened. And I could never figure out, is it them or is it me? And at a certain point in time, after enough bad relationships, you kind of have to ask yourself, maybe I'm a part of this problem. Maybe I'm donating to the cause, so to speak, and maybe there's something wrong with me that other people are sensing. And so I decided to take the next 18 months traveling around the world, backpacking and hitchhiking and tenting and living in hostels. And I went to the 36 countries or so that I did over the course of 15 or 18 months. And I spent that time alone. And I had no friends and no relationships and really didn't talk to anybody much other than my parents and maybe a text here or there once a month or so. And during that time, I realized something. And I think a lot of men do this, either because they're raised from a traditional standpoint, which is you need to be a provider and you need to be a good man. And as long as you're both, you will eventually find somebody that's right for you. Either you're raised that way, or you're raised where you don't have a good male role model in your life. And you kind of have to wing it a little bit, and things keep going wrong for you, and you don't know why. One of the things that I realized is that if you are somebody that, and I think a lot of young men go through this, if you're somebody that you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going in life, you don't know what you're supposed to be, you're directionless, which I think is most men until maybe 25, 30 years old, you're going to find yourself always looking for a place to belong. Sometimes that can be a relationship or a woman. Sometimes that can be friends. Sometimes that can be family. Sometimes that can be, even if it's people you casually know on the internet, like you play MMOs or game online. You want to find a sense of belonging. And the reason why you want to do that is because it's really hard to be alone. But I think one of the critical things that every man should go through, and I think they should do it earlier in life rather than later in life because it'll give you more years of happiness, is to spend that time alone figuring out who you are, what you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. And that sounds very simplistic, but if you think about it, a lot of times you take your average guy, you take my life story. Grew up in high school, had a pretty good group of friends. They graduate, they all go off to college. I joined the military, got more friends, and I was a little bit of a follower. I just kind of followed the trends, followed what my friends did. We kind of thought as a pack, almost like a pack of wolves instead of being a lone wolf. We did everything as a group. And then after that kind of started going to an end, you say, well, I guess I'm supposed to have a family or have a relationship or get married and move in that direction. And before you know it, then you're trying to be boyfriend or husband material. meaning I should make good money and I should drive a nice car and I should be able to afford to take a woman to a nice place. And then you maybe get that relationship and things go well or they don't go well, and then you repeat it, or then you get married and then you try to buy the house. And all these things is always and then, because it's what you're supposed to do versus it's what you want to do or what you as a person are. Maybe you're then working a job that brings in enough income to support somebody else versus what you want to do. A lot of that was the way I went through my life. But what ultimately ends up happening is you almost become like this block of wood. This really is who you should be. This is who you are. Strong, solid, you know where you're going, you know what you're doing. You're supposed to be the stone, the block. But instead, because men aren't taught how to do that anymore, how to be that person anymore, they become the security blanket. They become the rapper. And what I mean by that is not being like Eminem rapper. I mean that you'll find a group of friends and they all think they know what they're doing, and so you kind of follow the tribe, and so you kind of glam onto that. Or then you find the girlfriend. She thinks we should do this, and so you're going to follow her lead and you're going to kind of glam onto that. Or family tells you you need to go to college and you need to do this as a career and and so to make them happy, you become that support blanket again. Before you know it, when the family goes away, when the relationship goes away, when the friends goes away, all of a sudden everything that you think you should be doing is gone. All you're left is your floating blanket. You're just a wrapper without a package. And you're left directionless and aimless, and you don't know what you're going to do with your life. And I think a lot of guys end up there later rather than sooner. Myself, I was one of them. I was raised to be a traditional man and to be a good provider and be a man amongst boys, And so you had a good group of friends, and then you meet the woman, and then you marry her, and it's happy ever after, and be a good provider. And even if you're doing jobs you don't love, just so you can bring in enough money for the family, but eventually that family will be your payoff, and it'll all be worth it. Well, what happens when that falls apart? What happens when the girlfriend cheats on you? What happens when your friends get married or move away or get a different career or something like that? You're left with an empty life. Spending time alone, being alone with no other distractions, nothing else telling you what you should do, or no one else telling you what you should do. You've got to figure out pretty quick, what am I going to do in my life to be happy? Now, as men, we don't have a support blanket. We don't, society doesn't give too much of a care about us. So we realize, well, I'm going to have to do this job to pay the bills, but what I really want to do is X. Or eventually I want to do Y. And if you don't get a distraction to come up in your way, which is either a group of friends or a woman or a family or whatever, you will eventually gravitate to what you want to do. But I think too many times men let other distractions get in their way because it's uncomfortable being alone and it's uncomfortable being by yourself. And it's very nerve-wracking because what if you make a bad decision? What if you screw up and you lose your job and all of a sudden you're homeless? Well, I'll tell you something. It's okay to make those mistakes, and it's okay to go through that uncomfortable period or that time in your life where things kind of suck because you're alone. Because once you do that, you realize, hey, you know what? This isn't really as scary as I thought it would be. And it's okay to make mistakes. And it's okay to be alone. And it's okay to be without friends. As long as you have something to fill it with. And what you should be filling it with is your long-term goals and what you want to do for a career, what makes you happy, and find that direction. You can't find that direction if you're busy supporting other people or helping other people or being friends with people that they're doing their own thing and you're just kind of one that's glamming on and hanging in there. So I think the big thing that I took away from spending so many years, I was alone, I didn't date, I didn't really have any friends for about 5 years. But for 3 of those years, I was staying at my family's home, building my school bus that I drove around for one summer until it broke down. But during and so I wouldn't really count that because they weren't. I was living on the bus doing my own thing, and I just wanted to spend time with my father, my mother, and my father, but my father specifically because he had Parkinson's disease and he had frontal lobe dementia. He had a dementia thing, and so we knew the time with him was going to be limited. That's why I spent that time, and I'm glad I did because he passed a short time later. But during that time, and mostly during the 15 months that I traveled around the world, I realized something. All my friends weren't really friends. They were just kind of in my life. And I had to put more effort into the relationship to stay in their lives than they did about me. They didn't really care if I was there or not. I mean, they did, but they didn't. I think a lot of us have that experience. Then, in relationships, I realized, you know what? I was always the one sacrificing. I was sacrificing my career to make her happy. I was sacrificing our money to make her happy. I apologize for the low-flying airplane. I was making the sacrifices so she would be happy because I felt like, hey, maybe this is the right way to make a woman be happy with me. And you know something? When they ended up leaving or they ended up doing their own thing, all of a sudden I have no goals left because I was there. I was supporting them. And it's kind of like being on a ladder and having the ladder kicked out from underneath you, right? A lot of guys go plummeting to the ground because they don't have anything of their own supporting them, or they might have tied a rope around a beam above them and they're left swinging. Find your own life, do what's right for you, and make sure anybody in your life is an addition to your life. And you can be an addition to their life as well. I mean, that's what being a friend is about. But you better have your own goals in your own life and your own projects and your own happiness, and you need to have everything all to yourself. Then if you do, then if you find somebody else, you become friends and you can hang out, even if you're different or whatever. You can have somebody, and if they go away, you're still all of you. But the minute that you've become that support blanket, you're in trouble without knowing who you are. Now, if you're happily married or you have children, yes, you need to be the support blanket for that family. And it's okay to give up a large portion of your life for those people because they're dedicated to you and you're dedicated to them. But that aside, you've got to make sure your life is 100% whole and 100% happy and 100% going in the direction you want. Because if you haven't found that, every time a woman leaves you, every time a friendship ends, anytime a job ends, anytime you're low on money, anytime things don't go your way, you're going to be extremely unhappy or sad or, thinking about taking a long walk off a short pier or a small jump off a large cliff, and things are not going to go well for you. But if you don't have your life tied up into these other projects and you're happy with who you are as a person, then almost anything you do is going to turn out okay for you because you're going to be happy with the one person you're guaranteed to be with for the rest of your life, which is yourself. So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes and maybe put this out there just because it's something I went through. And before that, my life was one way, and after that, my life was completely different. And the one afterwards is much better. Because now if I'm in a relationship and it doesn't work, oh well, moving on. Even if you have a great group of friends and they all move away and you're bored and things aren't quite the way you thought it was, oh well, moving on, life goes on. It's a much more cavalier attitude, but it's also coming from a much stronger base. And I think that's very important for men to find. How you find it, I don't know. It doesn't mean that you need to spend it alone. It doesn't mean you need to isolate yourself from everybody else like I did. But it does mean that you need to find your place and your center in your life before you're going to be happy. You can't use the external locus, as you would call it. You can't use external sources to give you the root of your happiness. As long as you can figure that out, I think you'll be okay. For those of you that want to stick around, I'm going to just give you a very, very quick tour of how progress on the house is coming. It's kind of hard today because it's coming up on sunset on a cloudy day, but as you can see, we've got here's my porch is all gone in here, I don't have a covering for the porch yet except for the center, but see, I'm doing some nice tongue and groove, and I'm going to have some big bay windows. This is going to be the front of the house here. So my bedroom is going to have 2 windows and double doors coming out to the patio. And then the front of the house is going to have 2 big windows and I should say big picture window here in the center. And then it's going to have 2 doors coming into the front. And then the second bedroom, it's only going to be a 2-bedroom place. Second bedroom, same thing, 2 windows and big double doors to come out on the patio. This is going to have a roof over it, and it's going to be screened in, so at night when you want to open the doors and enjoy the fresh air, you don't have to worry about moths and mosquitoes. And when I say you, I mean anybody that's lucky enough to get to come stay with me. Here's the interior of the house. Again, 1,200 square feet, not very big. I'm standing in the guest bedroom here, and down there in that corner, that's going to be the stairs that go down to my studio, where I'm going to be. I've got a little 400 square foot room to do my sound recording studio. This is going to be the kitchen back there. I'm standing in the living room here. And then over here is going to be the master bedroom and the master bath in the back, and the pantry for the kitchen. And back here is going to be the corner of the kitchen. It's not very big, but I've decided to do it with dogwood, with big timbers here. You can see here, there's the size of my hand, and this is the size of my hand, and here's one of the timbers holding up the house here. So it's going to be a traditional Tennessee, since I'm living in Tennessee, it's going to be the Tennessee log home. And then they use a product called chinking to go in between all the timbers here, which is kind of I don't know what they make it out of, but it's kind of how they seal the gaps in between the logs. And then here's my garage. And this is going to be, let's see, 22 by 22 or 24 by 24 garage. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 windows and 2 doors. Double bay garage. And that's where we are. It's not a very big house. It's not going to be very big. A little 2-bedroom with a studio, but 2-bed, 2-bath. But I wanted to do a little bit higher quality materials. Rather than just have a big house of 5,000 square feet with traditional framing on everything. I really wanted to do a log cabin. We're going to see how it turns out. So far, I love it. We're out here in the middle of my 25 acres, and it's very quiet. It's very peaceful. As you can see here, I have all that pile there is probably, 15, 16 feet high. That's going to be I gotta either yank it all down and find a way to cut it and make that that'll be heating my home, and that'll be heating my metal building, because the house isn't going to be done here for probably another year by the time all is said and done. But that's going to heat my garage where I'm living now, my metal building garage, and that'll eventually be heating my house. Solar is going to go in here behind the building. I'm going to have 14.5 kilowatt hours kilowatts, I should say, of panels, and probably a 25 kilowatt hour battery to get me through the night with everything, because I need a lot of power since I run my computers in my studio. And that's kind of where we stand now. I'm going to keep the camera aimed at me so I can get past my license plates, just so you weirdos don't try to look me up. But you can see here, I've got my just solar panels. I toss these on the ground for now for my building, and got the doors covered by reflective aluminum. And so far the summer is almost over, and I survived it. I got a wood fireplace that I've ordered that I'm going to be putting in this building. And yeah, we're just plugging along. So there's a little home update for you. I hope if you guys are having a bit of a struggle, or you're having a rough summer, or you've lost friends or relationships or family or something else, I hope this helps you find some grounding, because once you do, then when you're alone, you say, you know what, I got my hobbies, I got all these things I enjoy doing, that other people might actually be an interruption to that. I like being alone, very much so. And it doesn't mean that you don't date, doesn't mean that you don't have friends. It just means the vast majority of your life is alone, because let's face it, that's pretty much the default for a lot of guys. A lot of guys' default is going to be, I should prepare and be okay with being alone. That's just where we are today. So Hope this helps. I'll read your comments as you leave them below, and I'll see you in the next one.